Have you ever thought about like a sixth sense? You know, something beyond our normal five.
Hmm.
Like you think about all the stories we have, like people seeing the future or like crystal balls and tarot cards
Right.
and just even like weird feelings you get that you can't really explain.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep fascination with the unknown. I think it's pretty human.
Yeah.
And it makes you think, like, do animals have something like that too?
Yeah, like do our pets have a sixth sense? You
Yeah,
know,
like a way of knowing things that we don't.
exactly.
Hmm.
And so that's what we're going to like dive into today.
Okay, cool.
This is a deep dive specifically for you guys into the pretty interesting topic of like psi animal
Interesting.
or like extrasensory perception in animals.
Okay, so like animal ESP.
Yeah, so we're talking about that idea that like maybe your dog knows you're thinking about them,
Right.
even when you're like miles away.
Yeah.
Or your cat can just tell that there's like danger even before you can. So when we say like psi animal, we're not talking about your pet just like reacting to sounds or smells that you don't notice.
Right.
Or like understanding your commands because they've learned to associate that with something.
Right. That's just their senses.
That's just normal stuff.
Their normal world.
But psi animals, like those abilities that go beyond the normal senses, like telepathy or clairvoyance, or even like precognition.
Right. The stuff that seems impossible.
Yeah, so we're talking about stuff that like science is usually pretty skeptical about.
And for good reason, right? It's tough to prove.
Yeah, it's really hard to study this stuff.
Right.
But it's so interesting because there are so many stories out there.
Oh, yeah. Tons of stories.
Personal stories that like make you wonder if there's something more to it.
Right.
And there are even like parapsychological studies that are looking into it.
Yeah.
So we're going to like take a look at all this stuff
Sounds good.
and like figure out what the sources are telling us,
Yeah, break it down for us.
Yeah, without getting too like bogged down.
Okay.
So how about we start with a cross-eyed opossum?
Okay, hold on. A cross-eyed opossum?
Yeah, who is supposedly like predicting who's going to win an Oscar.
What?
Yeah.
So, okay, that got my attention.
Yeah, it sounds silly, but it's like a perfect example of how we're just so fascinated with animals being able to like predict things.
I guess so. Yeah, humans love predictions.
So there's this opossum in Germany, and her name is Heidi,
Heidi.
and she's become really famous.
Really?
Yeah, because she's cross-eyed.
Okay, so.
And it gives her a super unique look.
Yeah, she's probably adorable.
Yeah. So here's the funny part.
Okay.
She's been chosen to predict who's going to win at the next Academy Awards.
She's going to predict the Oscars.
Yeah, and they're actually going to show her picks on Jimmy Kimmel's pre-show.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So.
Interesting choice, I guess.
Yeah.
Has Heidi, like, ever predicted anything before, or is this just for fun?
As far as I can tell, she's just famous for being cross-eyed.
Oh, okay.
And so I think this Oscar thing is mostly just like a fun thing, to get people talking about her.
Right, to get some attention.
Yeah. But it is interesting though, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all kind of like the idea that maybe animals know something we don't.
Right, like they have some secret knowledge.
Even though deep down we know it's probably just random.
Yeah. Probably just a coincidence.
Yeah.
But fun to think about.
Exactly.
So this Heidi thing is probably more for show than like real psychic powers.
Right.
But it's a good way to get us thinking,
Yeah.
Like maybe animals do have other sixth senses.
Yeah, like real ones.
Real ones that we haven't found yet.
Yeah. And that leads us to something really cool.
Oh, okay. What's that?
So forget about those Oscar predictions for a second.
Okay.
Because some researchers at the University of Maryland have actually found a real sixth sense in geckos.
Oh, wow.
This isn't like guessing celebrities. This is a real physical thing that they can do that we didn't know about before.
So like a sense that they have that we don't?
Yeah.
That's amazing. What is it?
So it has to do with their ears.
Their ears. Okay.
But not in the way you'd think.
Oh, okay.
It's not about hearing the way we do.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So you know that part of the inner ear called the sacculus?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Well, usually we think of it as being for balance, right?
Right.
But in geckos, they actually use it to sense vibrations.
Oh, wow. So they can like feel sound.
Yeah, kind of. It's like an inner ear drum, but it's tuned to feel those really low rumbles.
So not like hearing the sound waves, but feeling them.
Exactly.
Huh.
And this study they did, it was published in Current Biology.
Okay.
And it showed that geckos use this part of their ear to detect like super low frequency vibrations.
How low are we talking?
We're talking about vibrations that travel through the ground or water,
Okay.
like between 50 and 200 hertz.
Mm.
That's like the lowest rumble you might feel from a subwoofer.
Wow, so they're feeling the base.
Yeah, and this is like totally new information. We had no clue reptiles could do this.
So that little sacculus thing, it's not just for geckos, right?
Right, it's actually super old.
Oh, okay.
Like ancient old. It's found in amphibians and fish too.
Wow, so it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, and the fact that it's in all those different animals means it's probably really important for their survival.
Right, like it must give them an advantage somehow.
Exactly.
It's so cool.
And one of the researchers, Dr. Catherine Carr, she explains it really well.
Okay.
She says that the ear, as we know it, hears airborne sounds, but this ancient inner ear pathway, which is normally tied to balance, helps geckos detect vibrations that travel through mediums like the ground or water.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And she also said that this finding gives us new insights into how hearing actually evolved.
Oh, wow. So, like, how did we go from fish to land animals?
Yeah, how did those ears change?
That's a big question.
So this discovery is kind of a big deal
Yeah, it seems like it.
because it challenges how we usually think about reptiles.
Right, we think of them as being, like, deaf and mute.
Yeah, but now we know they can sense these vibrations. And that means maybe they're communicating with each other in ways we never even thought of, like maybe through little tremors in the ground.
That's amazing, like a whole secret language.
Yeah, and Dao Han, the lead author of the study, he said that before this, we thought a lot of snakes and lizards were basically mute and deaf.
Yeah, because they don't make sounds or react to them much.
Right, but now it turns out they might be communicating through vibrations using this special sensory pathway.
So they're not deaf, they just hear differently.
Exactly. And he said, this really changes how scientists think about animal perception.
Yeah, it's like a whole new way of looking at their world.
And it makes you think, what other hidden abilities are we missing?
Right, what else are we not seeing?
So that's the big takeaway for you guys.
Okay.
We might be totally misunderstanding how a lot of creatures sense the world.
Not just with their ears, but with their whole bodies.
Yeah, they might be experiencing a symphony of vibrations that we can't even imagine.
That's mind-blowing.
And here's something even crazier.
Okay.
Dr. Carr and Han think this discovery could help us understand human hearing and balance problems too.
Wait, really? How is that connected?
Well, think about when you go to a loud concert.
Okay.
You know how you can feel the music in your chest?
Oh, yeah, that bass.
Yeah, it's like a physical punch.
It is.
Well, Dr. Carr thinks that's actually our vestibular system.
The balance system.
Yeah, being stimulated by those powerful sound waves.
So it's not just our ears, it's our whole body.
Exactly. And that means there's a much closer link between hearing and balance than we realized.
That's incredible. So studying geckos could help us with human health problems.
Yeah, like vertigo or other balance issues.
Wow, that's the kind of stuff that makes science so cool.
Totally unexpected connections.
So this gecko thing really shows us how complex and amazing animal senses are.
Yeah, and how much we still have to learn.
Right.
Okay, so we've gone from a fun Oscar-predicting opossum to a real sixth sense in geckos.
Okay, that's quite a range.
Yeah, now let's switch gears a bit
Okay, where we're going now.
and talk about something a little more well and explained.
Okay, I like it.
We're going to look at some stuff Stephen Kotler wrote in Psychology Today.
Oh, Stephen Kotler. Yeah, he writes about some pretty interesting things.
He does. He's always exploring like peak performance and consciousness.
And the edges of reality.
Yeah. And in this article, he's talking about his own experiences with animal ESP.
Okay, so his personal take on it.
Yeah, and this is actually related to his book, A Small Furry Prayer, Dog Rescue and the Meaning of Life.
Okay, so he's looking at the connection between humans and animals.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And in the article, Kotler talks about this idea that pops up in tons of ancient cultures.
What idea?
This idea that there was a time when humans and animals could, like, talk to each other.
Oh, like a shared language?
Yeah. And he even mentions Mircea Eliade's work on shamanism
Right.
and how shamans are trying to connect with that primal bond with the animal world.
To understand their wisdom?
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
And it's not just ancient cultures.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Kotler mentions the story in the Bible about the talking snake in Genesis. It's like this idea is everywhere.
It's a common thread.
And he calls it an enigma.
An enigma, okay.
Like, how did this idea spread so far and wide so long ago before we had the internet or anything?
Right before mass communication.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if there's like a real basis for it, you know?
Like maybe it's not just a story.
Yeah.
So he's looking at the history of this idea.
Yeah, and then he goes on to talk about some more modern stories.
Okay, like what?
Like stories that are hard to explain with science.
Okay, I'm listening.
So he tells this story about a journalist
Okay.
whose dog actually spoke to her.
Wait, the dog talked?
Yeah, and told her to get out of the bathtub because there was something she needed to see. I
Wow.
know, it's a pretty wild story.
Yeah, a talking dog. That's hard to believe.
Yeah, and Kotler himself says it's tough to explain these things with science.
Right.
Like, he tries to think about it in terms of intuition or like unusual states of awareness,
Right.
but sometimes it just doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit into our normal understanding.
Yeah, and then he shares his own experience with his Chihuahua, Damien.
Oh,
And
Damien.
Damien was old and arthritic,
Okay.
so he didn't really move around much, especially in the cold.
Right. Makes sense.
But one day, Damien suddenly had this burst of energy.
Really?
Yeah, he was licking Kotler's face and acting like a puppy again.
Wow, a sudden change.
Yeah, and it was freezing outside.
That's strange.
And at the same time, Kotler had this weird mental experience.
Okay.
Like, he felt Damien was trying to communicate with him.
Oh, you mean communicate?
Like, he heard a voice in his head.
A voice in his head. Okay.
And it felt like it was Damien's voice saying, "I'm saying goodbye, but I need to go get lost."
Wow.
And then the next morning, Damien insisted on going for a walk.
Even though he didn't like the cold?
Yeah, he hadn't wanted to go for weeks because of his arthritis.
Right.
But that day, he was adamant.
Okay, and then what happened?
He ended up disappearing.
Oh.
Yeah, Kotler was freaking out.
Yeah, I bet.
He looked everywhere for Damien, and finally he found him,
Oh, thank goodness. Where was he?
sitting near the entrance to their hiking trail.
Their hiking trail.
Oh, the one they always went to.
Wow, and he was okay.
Yeah, totally fine.
That's so strange.
I know Kotler was completely baffled.
Yeah, I bet.
He said he couldn't explain it at all.
So he's like a science guy,
Yeah,
but he had this experience that science can't explain.
exactly. And it's those kinds of personal experiences that make people believe in animal ESP.
Right, even if it doesn't fit with what we know.
And then Kotler mentions this study called Feeling Future
Okay, feeling future.
by Daryl Bem. It was published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology.
Okay.
And it supposedly showed some evidence of precognition in humans.
So like people knowing the future.
Yeah, and Kotler's point is if we can't totally rule out these abilities in ourselves,
Right.
then maybe we shouldn't dismiss them in animals either.
That's an interesting point.
So precognition in any species is like a huge challenge to how we think about time and cause and effect.
Yeah, it really messes with our understanding of reality.
Yeah, and that's why this study was super controversial.
Right.
But it does open the door to thinking about these possibilities in animals.
Yeah, even if we don't have the tools to really study it yet.
Okay, so we've talked about personal stories and like the possibility of precognition in humans.
Okay.
Now get this, the US government actually looked into ESP.
Wait, really?
Yeah, including ESP in dogs.
No way.
Yeah, especially during the Cold War.
Wow, so like secret government psychic dog programs.
Well, maybe not that dramatic,
Okay,
but they were definitely interested in it.
makes sense. I guess the Cold War was a crazy time.
Yeah, they were exploring all kinds of stuff.
Right, any advantage they could get.
So in 1990, some of this information was declassified.
Okay.
And it turns out there was this operation called Grill Flame.
Grill flame.
Yeah, and it involved using people with supposed psychic abilities for like military intelligence.
Oh, wow.
And apparently it was successful enough that it made some people in the government less skeptical about this stuff.
So they're taking it seriously.
Yeah, and these studies had code names like Sunstreak and Center Lane and Gondola Wish.
Gondola Wish? Wow, that's a great name.
Yeah.
It's very mysterious.
But before Grill Flame, there was an even earlier project at Duke University.
Duke University. Okay.
Yeah, in the early 1950s.
Wow.
And this one was commissioned by the Defense Technical Information Center.
Okay.
And they wanted to look into the limits of canine senses.
So, like, how good is a dog's sense of smell or hearing?
Yeah, and some people thought this was like a secret attempt to study canine ESP.
Interesting.
But then in 2014, someone filed a Freedom of Information Act request.
An FOIA request. Okay.
Yeah, and they got the documents, and it turns out the Duke study wasn't about ESP at all.
So not psychic dogs.
No, it was about their sense of smell.
Oh, okay. Back to the basics.
Yeah, but it was still really impressive what they found.
Like what?
They found that dogs can smell tiny amounts of garlic oil.
Garlic oil.
Yeah, like ridiculously small amounts, like 0.000000005%.
Wow, that's like a drop in the ocean.
And they were accurate like 85% of the time.
That's incredible.
So it wasn't ESP, but it was still super sniffing dogs.
Right. Still pretty amazing.
Yeah, and even though the government wasn't directly looking into psychic dogs,
Right.
the fact that they were asking those questions is interesting.
Yeah, it shows that they were curious about those possibilities.
Exactly, like, what if animals could do things we don't understand?
Hmm.
Okay, so we've covered a real sixth sense in geckos. some personal stories, and even some government research.
Okay, a good mix.
Now let's look at what parapsychology says about all this.
Okay, so the more fringe science perspective.
Yeah, so in parapsychology, they call it psi-animal.
Okay.
And it basically means extrasensory communication between different species,
Okay.
especially between humans and animals.
Right.
And it also includes the idea of animals sensing the future, precognition,
Right.
and like mental connections between animals themselves.
Okay, so a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, and there are basically two sides to this.
Right, the believers and the skeptics.
Yeah, so people who believe in animal ESP say that animals can read minds,
Okay.
that they can sense danger and predict death,
Mm.
and even travel psychically over long distances.
Wow, that's a lot of abilities.
Yeah, it is.
So what do the skeptics say?
They say there's no proof of any of that.
Right.
They say animals aren't reading minds, they're just picking up on cues that we don't notice.
Right, like body language or something.
Yeah, or they say it's just coincidence.
Right.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
Our source says that parapsychologists have rated the evidence for animal ESP as excellent.
Excellent. Wow.
Yeah, and they say the probability of it being real is well high.
That's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah, so they're pretty convinced.
So what kind of evidence are they looking at?
They talk about a lot of stories and experiments.
Okay, like what kind of stories?
Like there's this classic story about a mother dog and her puppy.
Okay.
They were trained to be scared of a raised newspaper.
Okay.
But even when they were separated into different rooms, the puppy still got scared when someone raised the newspaper in front of the mother dog.
Wow. So like they were connected somehow.
Yeah. And then there's this other story about a dog whose heartbeat was being monitored.
Okay.
And it suddenly went crazy when the owner was threatened in another room.
Even though the dog couldn't see or hear what was happening.
Yeah.
That's pretty weird.
And then there's the one about the horse that refused to move.
Okay.
And then lightning struck right where they would have been.
Oh, wow. Like it knew.
And then there's the famous story of Bobby the collie.
Bobby the collie. Okay.
He got lost in Indiana while traveling with his family from Oregon.
Oh, okay.
And he managed to travel almost 3,000 miles back home.
What? 3,000 miles?
Yeah, over several months.
How is that even possible?
I know, it's incredible.
Did he retrace his steps?
No, he went a totally different way.
Wow. So he didn't just follow the same route back.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And our source says it's really hard to explain these things without considering ESP.
Right. Like there's no other logical explanation.
And a lot of pet owners say they've felt this kind of connection with their own animals, too.
Like they can sense what their pet is thinking.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the source even tells a story about their own cat
Okay.
that used to lick their forehead whenever they had a migraine.
Like it knew they were in pain.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, and it makes you think about how deep our connection with animals really is.
Right. And if we could really understand them, would we want to?
Yeah, it's an interesting ethical question.
Yeah.
So to get an idea of all the different types of psi-animal phenomena,
Okay.
our source has a huge list of examples,
Okay.
and it's broken down into categories.
Okay. That's helpful.
So like some of the common things people report are things like a dog knowing when their owner is coming home,
Right. I've heard of that.
or a cat sensing that someone is sick,
Okay.
or animals running away before a natural disaster.
Wow.
And then there's the idea of telepathic connection between owners and their pets, and times when animals seem to make choices based on intuition. Okay. And there have been some parapsychological studies trying to investigate these things.
Like real experiments.
Yeah, looking at telepathy and precognition in animals.
Wow.
And also that homing instinct that
Yeah.
some animals have.
Right.
But those studies are controversial,
Yeah, I bet.
and they've had mixed results.
Okay.
And the source is careful to point out that there are a few things to consider when looking at all this.
Like what?
Well, first of all, science is skeptical.
Right.
And it's hard to design experiments that can rule out all other explanations.
Right.
And then there's the danger of anthropomorphism.
Anthropomorphism.
Yeah, that's when we project our own thoughts and feelings onto animals.
Right. Like we assume they think like us.
Exactly.
Okay, so we need to be careful about that.
Yeah.
So what else is on this list of examples?
Oh, man, it's huge.
Okay, hit me with it.
So there's like animals knowing who's the saddest person in a group, reacting differently to good and bad people,
Interesting.
finding lost objects without using their normal senses,
Oh,
synchronizing their actions with their owners even when they're far apart,
wow.
sensing danger that humans can't see.
Like a sixth sense for danger.
Yeah, and responding to their owner's silent thoughts.
That's crazy.
And then it gets even weirder.
Weirder. Okay.
Like animals being sensitive to some kind of environmental energies or sensing when someone is going to die.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there's like animals showing intuition in games of chance.
Like they can predict the outcome.
Yeah, and being sensitive to electromagnetic fields.
Electromagnetic fields.
Yeah, and even communicating with humans in dreams.
Communicating in dreams. Wow.
Yeah, and it just keeps going.
Keep going.
Like animals choosing safe paths without knowing the way, responding to distance healing.
Distance healing.
Yeah, sensing invisible presences.
Invisible presences.
Yeah, and knowing when their routine is going to change.
Whoa.
And choosing objects that have emotional meaning for their owners.
That's so interesting.
And then there are even more far-out examples, like animals perceiving invisible intruders.
Invisible intruders.
Yeah, and communicating through shared dreams.
Shared dreams. Wow.
Yeah, and being sensitive to changes in the Earth's magnetic field.
The Earth's magnetic field.
Yeah, and responding to complex human thoughts.
Wow.
And sensing illness in other animals. Having an internal sense of time.
Like a biological clock?
Yeah, choosing foods they need even if they've never tried them before.
Interesting.
Sensing hidden intentions in people.
Like they can tell if you're lying.
Yeah, and communicating during altered states of consciousness.
Altered states of consciousness.
Yeah, and sensing subtle changes in their environment that humans miss. And responding to mental images or words.
Mental images.
Yeah, and perceiving objects that are far away.
Okay, this list is getting pretty wild.
I know it is.
So many possibilities.
And it keeps going.
Keep going. I'm hooked.
So there's also the idea of animals sensing their own illness before any symptoms appear.
Oh, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and having an affinity for certain people.
Right, like they just click with some people.
Yeah, and being sensitive to the emotional atmosphere of a place. And communicating through shared intuition with their owners.
Shared intuition.
Yeah, and even perceiving future world events on an emotional level.
Future world events.
Yeah, and responding to mental visualizations.
Okay, this is getting pretty out there.
I know it is.
But it's fascinating.
So there's also animals finding hidden objects in complex environments. Sensing pregnancy before it's physically obvious.
Oh, wow.
Choosing better paths without any experience.
Interesting.
Sensing when people are lying.
So like a lie detector dog.
Yeah. And communicating through strong emotions at a distance.
Strong emotions.
Yeah. And changing their behavior in response to technological changes.
Technological changes.
Yeah. And responding to music or sounds that their owners are thinking of.
That's crazy.
And sensing lost objects that are far away.
Like they can track them.
Yeah. And knowing if they're genetically compatible with a potential mate and being drawn to people with specific auras or energy fields.
All right.
Yeah, and it just keeps going.
Keep going. I'm not tired yet.
Okay, so there's also sensitivity to the Akashic records.
The Akashic records. What's that?
It's like a universal record of everything that's ever happened.
Wow, that's a big concept.
Yeah, and then there's communicating through intuitive understanding of needs.
Intuitive understand.
Yeah, and sensing subtle electromagnetic radiation. And responding to thoughts of danger directed at others.
Like a psychic shield.
Yeah, and recognizing someone even after they've changed physically.
So like they can see their soul or something.
Yeah, and being sensitive to tiny human micro-expressions.
Micro-expressions.
Yeah, and choosing objects that have some kind of psychic mark.
A psychic mark.
Yeah, and sensing ley lines or telluric currents.
Ley lines and telluric currents. Okay, now we're getting really esoteric.
Yeah, and communicating through intuitions about the immediate future.
The immediate future.
Yeah, and sensing natural electromagnetic fields. And responding to thoughts of absence or loss.
Wow.
And sensing a place's history.
A place's history.
Yeah, and perceiving changes in human mental health.
Wow.
And choosing objects with sentimental value.
Sentimental value.
Yeah, and being sensitive to energy knots in the environment.
Energy knots.
Yeah, and communicating through purposeful dreams.
Purposeful dreams.
And sensing tiny variations in gravity.
Tiny variations in gravity.
Yeah, and responding to healing thoughts from strangers.
Healing thoughts.
Yeah, and perceiving an object's timeline.
An object's timeline.
Yeah, and sensing hormonal changes in others.
Hormonal changes.
Yeah, and choosing places with emotional significance for others.
Okay, this is getting a little hard to follow.
I know it is.
It's like a never-ending list.
And it keeps going.
Keep going. I'm ready.
So there's also sensitivity to energy vortices.
Energy vortices.
Yeah, and communicating through intuitions about danger to others.
Intuitions about danger.
Yeah, and sensing tiny changes in barometric pressure. Barometric pressure. Yeah, and responding to thoughts of gratitude.
Thoughts of gratitude.
Yeah, and perceiving the aura of objects.
Auras, again.
Yeah, and sensing subtle changes in air composition.
Air composition.
Yeah, and choosing objects that have traces of other people's sensory experiences.
Sensory experiences.
Yeah, and being sensitive to Earth's energy grids.
Earth's energy grids.
Yeah, and communicating through intuitions about strangers' emotions.
Strangers' emotions.
Yeah, and sensing tiny variations in air ionization.
Air ionization.
Yeah, and responding to the thoughts of peace directed at a group.
Thoughts of peace.
Yeah, and perceiving water memory.
Water memory.
Yeah, and sensing torsion fields.
Torsion field.
Yeah, and choosing environments with geomantic harmony.
Geomantic harmony.
Yeah, being sensitive to scalar waves.
Scalar waves.
Yeah, and communicating through morphic resonance.
Morphic resonance.
Yeah, and perceiving tiny variations in Planck's constant.
Planck's constant.
Yeah, and responding to multidimensional healing thoughts.
Multidimensional healing thoughts.
Yeah, and perceiving water intelligence.
Water intelligence.
Yeah, and sensing vibrational strength.
Vibrational strings.
Yeah, and choosing objects with psychic chronovisors.
Psychic chronovisors.
Yeah, and being sensitive to shape waves.
Shape waves.
Yeah, and communicating through information fields.
Information field.
And perceiving ether, or the fifth element.
Guys, see you in another podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel.